I'm Avery Davidson. Thank you for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, the only TV show bringing Louisiana farmers and consumers together every week. How do Louisiana fishermen celebrate Earth Day? Well, they could plant a tree, but that's not really their style. What many are doing is building a new artificial reef in the Gulf of Mexico to create habitat for the sport fish that are vital to keeping Louisiana as sportsman's paradise. TWILA's Carl Wiggers recently traveled out of Venice Marina to get an up-close look at the green monster reef.
This concrete dropping into the Gulf of Mexico is 20 years in the making. This artificial reef being constructed is part of Coastal Conservation Association's Habitat program, which has built 33 reefs just like this one.
Really the mastermind of CCA's entire reef program for decades now. He is also the state president for CCA Louisiana and the chair of our Habitat Committee, Mr. John Walther.
This Habitat program is to replace what we're losing due to many factors. Coastal erosion, subsidence, and the removal of oil and gas structures which provide habitat for our fisheries. And that's what we're doing today.
Corey Ilg is the CCA Plaquemine chapter president. He's excited to see this popular fishing spot known as the Green Monster preserved.
I was born and raised in Plaquemine's Parish, and I got young children that fish with me every weekend when I do go fishing, and this is to sustain the habitat for future generations to enjoy the same stuff that we enjoy.
Hunting and fishing is part of the culture of Louisiana. That's why we're called a sportsman's paradise. And that's why those of us who participate in these resources are so interested in conserving these resources so that we have them available for our future generations.
CCA Louisiana's executive director, David Cresson, says projects like this would not happen without great partnerships.
This is the combination of a lot of hard work by a lot of people. Wildlife and Fisheries, obviously Mike and Ashley work great with us and we appreciate them. But then other partners came on board, like Chevron. We couldn't do any of this without them. But then folks like Tim Sander from Gainey's donated a bunch of material to us. Madare and Sons Towing, Deep South Construction, they came along, and it's just a combination of a lot of work coming together, and then the weather cooperating enough in these 3 or 4 days to where we can go do this. This is free material from Gainey's. Madare and Sons made a huge donation on their time and effort to make it possible for us to do this.
In Venice, Louisiana, I'm Carl Wiggers for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture.
What's even better about this reef is that it will be populating with invertebrates and bait fish within weeks of going into the water. That means you'll be able to catch the bigger redfish and speckled trout there in no time. You can learn more about the Green Monster Reef or CCA Louisiana on our website at twilatv.org. And I guess that means Carl's going to just have to go out there and do a follow-up. And hey, we might have the follow-up for you, because if you have the urge to go check out the Green Monster Reef or maybe another of your favorite fishing holes down in the Gulf, you need to register for the 2021 Terrebonne and Lafourche Parishes Farm Bureau Fishing Rodeo. It's a great event that will be held in Grand Isle on June 9th and 10th, with proceeds benefiting the Louisiana Ag in the Classroom Foundation and the Louisiana Farm Bureau Foundation. This event is always a huge hit, from the most advanced anglers to the first-time fishermen. Check-in begins at the Bridgeside Marina on Wednesday, June 9th at 2 p.m., followed by dinner with plenty of door prizes to give away. The tournament begins at daybreak on Thursday, June 10th. Weigh-in will end at 2 p.m. on Thursday. Entry fee is $100 per person, and corporate sponsorships are still available. To find out more information or to register your team, head over to our website at twilatv.org. If a few bad apples ruin the bunch, what about a lot of apple snails? Fortunately, these snails are no threat to the crawfish that you eat. However, as TWILA's Neil Melanson tells us, it is slowing harvest to a snail's pace.
It looks like a normal crawfish harvest, but these sacks are full of snails. This is the worst of the fields crawfish farmer Ross Hebert has, but he's seen them all across his 1,700 acres of ponds here in the last few years.
It seems like they are attracted to the bait that we're putting in the cages, and they're such slow movers that they're going into the funnels of the cage, and most of them are blocking the funnels for the crawfish to get inside. And they're also eating the ones that do get in early. They're eating the bait, therefore not having enough bait to allow the crawfish to get in the cage.
Mark Shirley, a crawfish expert with the LSU Ag Center, says they've been an invasive pest for a number of years now, but are starting to show up in greater numbers in crawfish ponds across South Louisiana.
So the apple snail population has been extending its range across South Louisiana. It seems like it may be traveling in the Gulf Intercoastal Waterway, and then it's traveling up some of the rivers, such as the Vermilion River here, the Mermentau a little bit further west, Bayou Teche to the east. So we are seeing the snail population expand. And in certain areas, the populations can get so high that they are a nuisance in a crawfish pond.
In Baton Rouge, researchers have found that a copper sulfate treatment can be effective on the snails. Here, researcher Blake Wilson, along with his grad student Julian, are working on a solution that's both effective and safe for crawfish.
At our South Farm Rice Research Station, where they have the crawfish lab, we're doing separate assays examining toxicity and mortality of crawfish, with the hopes that we can identify a dose that is highly lethal and provides good control of the apple snails without any negative impacts to the crawfish.
Now, while the LSU Ag Center is working on this copper sulfate treatment, there's a couple of ways you can help physically stop this snail infestation. One is when you see these eggs growing along crawfish ponds or bayous in your area, you can take a stick and knock these eggs into the water where they'll die. You don't want to physically touch them with your hands because they emit a toxic substance. And the other way is you can, if you break them off on a branch like this, you can put it on the ground and literally stomp the problem out. Reporting from Abbeville, I'm Neil Melanson.
Again, we want to emphasize that you will not see anything like this whenever you go to eat crawfish. There's not going to be snails in there. However, if they become more pervasive in ponds, it might start to cost more to bring in the harvest, as farmers have to spend more time getting these big things, about that size, out of all of the crawfish. Well, as you saw on Ross Hebert's hat, he sells to Mouton's Crawfish Connection in Maurice, right outside of Lafayette. So for this week's crawfish prices, we'll start over there. The Crawfish Connection has them live for $2.25 a pound and boiled for $5.30 a pound. Over in Lake Charles, K-Bon's has live crawfish for $2.50 a pound and boiled are going for $4.99 a pound. The Ruston Crawfish Factory in Ruston, Louisiana has them live for $3.25 per pound and boiled are $4.99 a pound as well. As always, call ahead before you go out and buy them. Another good plan, take a look at the retailer's social media. Sometimes they post some specials. I know Mouton's has package deals that offer potatoes or discounts as you buy more. Now, these crawfish prices are brought to you by the Louisiana Crawfish Promotion and Research Board, which reminds you to always eat Louisiana crawfish and to make sure, ask before you eat. Well, have you heard the best grassroots government podcast yet from the Louisiana Farm Bureau? We could say it's the best because the Louisiana legislative session began and we finally had some bills to discuss with lobbyist Joe Mapes. We could also say it's the best because Louisiana Farm Bureau National Affairs Coordinator Andy Brown discussed how the organization's grassroots members have started to take disaster relief into their own hands when it comes to helping neighbors. Both of those discussions were great, but I believe what made this episode stand out above the rest is our discussion with newly sworn-in Congresswoman Dr. Julia Letlow, representing Louisiana's 5th Congressional District. We talked about the experience of bringing her children with her to D.C. for her first week on the job, her appointment to the House Ag Committee, and the importance of constant dialogue with grassroots organizations like Louisiana Farm Bureau.
It's organizations just like the Farm Bureau. You're my eyes and ears, boots on the ground that are making sure that I am heading in the right direction. So it's so important for me to have these relationships and these connections with all of you to make sure that I go and visit with all of you, that I see the issues that you're facing so that I can best represent you. It's important for the staff in my office to be well aware of all of the issues that you're facing. I think you'll be very pleased with the staff that we have on, that stayed on from Congressman Abraham's staff and who Luke had put in place. You know, they are so well versed and they're veterans in the ag community, and I'm so thankful that they've agreed to stay on. And it's just important to have, you know, a great relationship with the Farm Bureau, and I plan to keep that strong moving forward.
We look forward to working with you as well, Congresswoman Letlow. To hear the entire episode of the best episode ever of the Grassroots Government Podcast, head over to our website at twilatv.org. Now is a great time to plant an herb garden in your backyard or maybe your back porch, even right there in your kitchen. In this week's Ag Minute, our friends at the Southern Food and Beverage Museum give us some tips to make the most of our herb garden.
Hi, I'm Liz Williams here at the Southern Food and Beverage Museum. If you planted your herbs in March, by now they must be really ready for harvesting. So we're going to talk a little bit about harvesting, storing, and how to encourage your herbs to keep growing. So first we're going to be cutting the herbs, and what you need to do is cut right above one of the joints so that you are encouraging the plants to keep growing. So when you get inside, you're going to want to make these herbs last as long as possible. So we have some lemon balm right now, and what we're going to do is strip the lower leaves off, and we can use those right away. And we put the stem right into water. And then when we're finished, we'll put that into the refrigerator, and those herbs will last for more than a week and still be fresh.
I love to use fresh rosemary or sage myself whenever I'm cooking. To learn more about the Southern Food and Beverage Museum, head over to our website at twilatv.org. Still to come on TWILA, we're going to get spicy with Louisiana beef. A brand new Field to Feast is coming up next. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm John Fielder, and I'm the Vice President, Branch Manager of the Louisiana Land Bank Shreveport Branch. In today's market, where interest rates are all-time low, it's very hard to find an investment that can compare to timber, something that's consistent, and typically if you manage timber correctly, it'll grow possibly as much as 6 to 8% or more. If you're looking for that loan for timber, for recreation property, for cattle, crops, call me, John Fielder at the Louisiana Land Bank.
Welcome to Field to Feast, where we profile Louisiana and its local ingredients. Today, we're at Red Stick Spice Company, and we're gonna kick it up a notch in their teaching kitchen, using Louisiana beef and Red Stick spices.
Field to Feast with Jennifer Finley is brought to you by the Louisiana Crawfish Promotion and Research Board, Louisiana Crawfish, ask before you eat, and by the Louisiana Beef Industry Council, beef, it's what's for dinner, and by the Louisiana Rice Promotion Board, think rice.
We're here in the teaching kitchen at Red Stick Spice Company with Yvette Bonanno, and she is going to be making a fabulous dish using Louisiana beef. Tell me a little bit about this cut of beef.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to show you this today because it's called hanger steak, which was also referred to as the butcher's cut.
Why?
So once the butcher was completed his butchering of the cow, this cut of meat, it's a little bit more challenging to butcher down. It hangs on the lower part of the cow, and it is very tender.
Okay.
So there was really no way to market it, so the butcher would take it for himself.
So
it has...
He had the inside skinny.
Exactly, and now you've got the inside skinny.
Wonderful.
The other thing about this cut of meat, it's gonna run you about $6, $7 a pound. It has the tenderness of a filet mignon, and then just a lot of marbleization. It's got some fat to it, and I'm just excited to show it to you.
So what are the spices we're gonna be using today?
So what I did find was they have a coffee barbecue rub.
Sounds delicious.
And it was great because when you're here, you can ask them to take the jar and then give you a taste to see if it's to your liking. And so of course I'm tasting them all. And then the other spice I found was the Steakhouse. It's a salt blend. So this had more heat to it, and this had the salt I needed to it. So cast iron, seasoned.
Yes.
We're gonna go oil first. Again, that's gonna raise the temperature, and then the selection of oils here is amazing.
Unbelievable.
To that, we're just gonna add a little bit of butter. It gives it a flavor. And then also, that, you know, provides that golden, beautiful color once we get it on the sear.
Ooh, days
Into
like
the
today, I love my job because I know at the end of this is going here.
I know, you know, when people are like, oh, I wish you could smell on TV.
Yeah.
I wish you could smell this.
You're only going to turn this once.
So yeah, we talk about anytime we're searing proteins, we want to trap that moisture, the flavors on the outside, but the juices are so very important.
Yeah.
So every time you're turning and flipping and mashing, those flavors and juices are being extracted.
Yep.
So right now we're searing the bottom, they're rising up. We're gonna turn it on its side, and then we're gonna just only flip it once.
Okay, look, see, that is beautiful.
It smells, I mean, it really smells absolutely delicious. And so the other thing that I have to say we were lucky enough to get is from Maggie Mushroom at the farmer's market.
One of my favorite people.
I mean, adore her.
Maggie and Cyrus are doing an amazing job out there. Talk to me about their mushrooms.
Well, I mean, their selection, their variety is incredible. But when you go to the market, it's picturesque, right? I mean, and they're lovely people where you're asking questions and what application for this mushroom and which one's hardier, which one, you know, is more delicate. So they gave me an assortment of oysters, chestnuts, the shiitakes. You know, mushrooms to me, an herb that is just so complimentary is fresh thyme. Like, you know, and so if we had time, we could put in here, but there were so many spices in this blend that I think it's just gonna showcase well. All right, so we're gonna remove our steak.
Oh my word.
And to the steak, here's what we're gonna do, Jen. We're gonna add a little bit of butter to our meat.
Okay, oh my goodness.
Yep.
That's okay.
We can do this.
It looks worth it. Oh
Yes.
my goodness.
So what's gonna happen is...
I'll have a salad tomorrow.
We're gonna tin it with foil. It's gonna melt and create more, not only of the pan juices, but more juices because that butter's just gonna melt right into it.
Seeping inside. And the actual meat, how tender it looks like butter.
Yeah,
you know,
it really does.
Oh my goodness.
So deglaze with a little red wine. I've got some Pinot Noir. If you don't drink your wine and you're not gonna drink it for the next couple of days, I put a cover on it, cork it, put it in the refrigerator, use it for cooking.
Okay.
So I know you never want it to go to waste, so.
Right. I'll try and save some for the cooking.
I know. So we're gonna deglaze, again, just getting all those particles from the bottom of the pan.
Yep.
Once it reduces, I've got a little bit of beef broth.
I think I do like it when it's more of a demi-glace.
Right, so it's just gonna be a little bit of beef stock, and we're just gonna let these simmer for just another minute, and then I'm just gonna finish off with some Italian flat leaf parsley.
And when we come back, Ann Milnick's gonna join us here in the teaching kitchen at Red Stick Spice Company to make a delicious side using these wonderful spices. Time to add the parsley?
Let's do it.
I'm a farmer.
I am a farm wife.
I am a cowboy.
I am a grass farmer.
I'm a businesswoman.
I'm a conservationist.
I am an advocate.
I am a voice for Louisiana farmers.
I'm always learning.
I'm a husband.
I'm a mom.
I am a dad.
I'm a granddad.
I am a consumer.
I grow the food that feeds your family, and I'm proud of it. I am Farm Bureau.
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 We are Farm Bureau.
So we're back here in the teaching kitchen at Red Stick Spice Company, and we're so excited to be with Ann Milnick. She's going to make us a side dish for that wonderful hanger steak. But first, I'd really like to talk about your gourmet grocery store. Tell me a little bit about Red Stick Spice Company.
For sure. First of all, we have a blast every day that we come in. I'm a gourmet grocery store, and when you walk in, you're going to be hit with all the smells. Now, we have smell amnesia. We don't smell anymore, but it's cumin and cinnamon and all these wonderful spices when you walk in. We also have olive oils and hand-blended teas and lots of local artisanal products. And then adjacent to the little grocery store where you can taste anything, you can smell anything, you walk into our teaching kitchen, which is where we are now. We are pretty darn proud of it.
Yes, you should be. This is gorgeous.
Yeah, we opened just a few months ago, and we couldn't be more tickled with ourselves with what we are able to accomplish in this room, bringing folks in to do cooking classes, but we're also doing videos and Zoom classes, and yeah, so we're having a blast.
I love it. So what are we going to be making?
So when I heard about hanger steak with the coffee barbecue rub, and I started thinking about those smoky elements and that richness, that umami that comes naturally from a piece of red meat, and then she's got some mushrooms going in there. I wanted to have some yang to her yin. So I wanted to make sure I brought in something sweet that would complement. Okay. And what's more perfect at this time of the year in Louisiana than Louisiana sweet potatoes?
Nothing.
So I grabbed Louisiana sweet potatoes, and I'm going to apply smoke and sweetness to them, and they're already naturally sweet. It's going to work perfectly with what Yvette did by using the coffee barbecue rub on the hanger steak. So I've got a sweet potato diced up, nice bite-sized cubes. I've got this in my bowl, and I'm going to add half of a sliced onion. And I'm going to go in a cast iron, and it's going to be incredibly hot. So I want to think about the size of the food and what would happen if I had like a finely minced piece of garlic in there. It's just going to burn too quickly.
Right.
So I want to go a little bit larger, and I want to not finely chop my onions. I want them to be in larger pieces, but they're going to caramelize and break down and commingle with those sweet potatoes. So I'm just going to give those
technique. But at the same time, even though it's a lot of technique, it's not intimidating.
No,
this is not something you cannot do at home. Yes.
This is so simple. This is probably the same roasted sweet potatoes most folks are doing. It's just thinking about it a little differently, working with the flavors that are naturally there, the sugars that are naturally there, and working with them a little differently. So I'm just going to toss those around. And what I've done is I've got a cast iron in the oven, and I've preheated it, and it is blazing hot.
Okay.
So I've got my onions and sweet potatoes, and I'm going in with smoked extra virgin olive oil.
Love it.
So,
I love your oil selection is just divine.
So smoked extra virgin olive oil goes on, sweet smoked paprika.
Okay.
So I'm going in with just a sea salt. I'm going to grab this preheated cast iron, and I'm going to
cast iron, the only way to go in Louisiana.
Yep.
Feels like it.
And so here it goes. And that is the magic sound right there. So we want that to happen, and that's going to go back into the oven. No lid.
Okay.
We're going to let our nose sort of guide us, but probably within the next 12 to 15 minutes, we're going to see some softening on the sweet potatoes. We need to pull them out, give them a stir, and make sure we really evenly get that caramelization on all sides.
And thank you so much for having
This
us
is so much fun.
here today in your teaching kitchen. I cannot wait to continue to come back and learn more and more and more.
This was a ball. Thank you.
If you'd like more information about Field to Feast, about the recipes you've seen on our show, please visit us at twilatv.org. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Field to Feast with Jennifer Finley was brought to you by the Louisiana Crawfish Promotion and Research Board, Louisiana Crawfish, ask before you eat, and by the Louisiana Beef Industry Council, beef, it's what's for dinner, and by the Louisiana Rice Promotion Board, think rice.
Did you know that some animals like sheep, goats, and llamas have fibrous coats that keep growing throughout the year? These animals need to be sheared regularly to keep them healthy and allow them to live comfortably through the changing seasons. In this week's TWILA Boost, we introduce you to one groomer who explains why the process is both necessary and humane for the animals.
I am an animal shearer. I remove the fiber from 4 different species: llamas, alpacas, sheep, and goats. And I do that all over the Midwest. We service over 500 farms, so we stay super busy. I think that people get really confused about the shearing process. It's definitely required. Their hair grows just like our hair grows. It's a protein, and you know, for the most part, if we don't cut our hair, it's not coming off. And it's the same for those animals. Thousands of years ago, sheep in the wild, that they would shed out their coat. And then humans came along and they started domesticating sheep. Sheep were the first domesticated animals ever recorded. We perfected the process of growing wool so that we could harvest it from them, which means that they won't shed at all. And if we don't shear those animals, it will just continue to grow and grow and grow and grow. And as it grows, it gets harder for the animals to move. It gets harder for them to find food. It gets harder for them to keep cool in the summer, and it won't stop until it eventually will likely kill the animal. A lot of people get confused and think that shearing is a cruel process, but it doesn't have to be. It's not about muscling the animals, it's about finessing them and convincing them that you're not hurting them and that they're in a safe environment, and then they just sit there. What's really cruel is to leave them without that shearing. The animal is both alive and awake while we're shearing. It's really about them feeling secure. So when I shear sheep, if you keep all their feet off the ground, they feel like they can't run away like a turtle. So there's no need to fight as long as I'm not hurting them. They just kind of like rock into this kind of equilibrium. And I'm only 150 pounds, so if that animal wanted to fight me and get away, it totally could. So it's my job to make them feel comfortable and like there's no need to get away. A lot of people think that I could muscle these animals, but I definitely could not. I could maybe muscle one animal, but not the 100 that I do in a day. So it's all kind of a dance. I refuse to sedate any animals because I believe that sedating them would actually be more traumatic in the experience. I would say that my average time for a sheep is sub 2 minutes. If I'm rocking and rolling, I'm usually 1.5 minutes. Except on the bigger ones, I just posted a video of me shearing a ram. He took 4 minutes and 15 seconds to do the whole thing, but he was huge.
Shearing a whole sheep in less than 2 minutes. Wow, that's just unbelievable. Well, that does it for this edition of TWILA. Be sure to join us next week when we'll introduce you to the 2021 Louisiana Farm Bureau Ag in the Classroom Teacher of the Year. Until then, you can watch all of our stories online at twilatv.org, and be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. For all of us here at TWILA, thank you for joining us. We hope to see you again right here next week.